Today we are going to create a version of the Pac-Man game in Scratch. The first thing I'd like to do is I want to look at the actual game here. So this gives me the idea. The Pac-Man sprite's going to look like this. We have some ghosts that we're going to use. And then we have a general idea of how the background is. There's a little bit of a maze. Here are the shapes of the maze. And then Pac-Man has to eat these little dots here. So we're going to create this in Scratch. And we're going to use this image as an idea of what we need to do. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the cat. And I'm going to search. And they have a ghost for us. So I could just use this ghost if I want. So it's somewhat similar. A little bit different, but it saves me a lot of time. If you want to draw your own, you can. And I'll just make this a lot smaller. I'll make this up to 40. Okay, so we have our ghost. And then I want to create a Pac-Man. So if you want to draw your own ghost, you can choose here and click draw and draw in your own ghost, but you don't have to. And now I'm going to draw in a Pac-Man. Okay, so I went down here and I click on the drawing. Now I click on a circle and I'm going to make it like this. Maybe a little brighter. Okay, so now I have my Pac-Man. And maybe I don't want that outline, so maybe I'll say no outline. Okay, so I have a Pac-Man. And if you want to, it depends on, it's up to you how you want to make this. If you want to make it a little bit more elaborate, you could make this maybe a little bit of a look to him, that he has an eye over here. And then some people, they like to do a little mouth like that. And if you want to, what you could do, you don't have to do this, but you could make multiple costumes. So you could, duplicate this. And then in the other costume, you could just make it that he has his mouth closed. So it makes it look like he's opening and closing his mouth when he moves, like the real Pac-Man. But we're not going to do that in our game. We're going to make it a little bit simpler. So I'll make this, maybe I'll make this 30. Let's see if we could make Pac-Man a little smaller, down to 30. Okay, so I got Pac-Man, I got my ghost. Next thing I need to do is I need to add in the little things he's going to eat. And so I'll just put in, you could draw in a dot if you want. I'll just use a ball here. And I want to change the color, so just so it doesn't get confusing, maybe I'll make this purple. So that way we don't get confused between the dot and Pac-Man. And let's make this, let's make the ball, let's try 40. Okay, so now we have that in there. And then what you could do is you could rename this ball 1. And then we're going to control duplicate. Oh, they're not letting me do it on my computer. If they don't let you duplicate, they should let my mouse is not working so well. If it doesn't work well for you, you could just go in and do it this way. And again, you can make it, what did we make the other one? We made the other one 40. 40. And you can call it ball 2. And then you can go to costume and you could change it to look like that. So now you have your 2 balls. And let's do a third one as well. So I'll go to here. And I'll search ball costumes, make it that color, make it size 40, I think we did. Okay, and then the last thing I want to do is I want to change it to ball 3. Okay, so now you have your 3 balls and you have your Pac-Man. The next thing we need to do is we need to make a little maze like this. So you don't have to make this, super elaborate. We have our Pac-Man, we have a ghost, and we have the little dots. So I only have 3 of them. They had many of them over here. But what we're going to do now is we're going to draw some background. So you don't have to do it exactly like this. But what I'll do is I'll go down here to the background and I'll click drawing. I'll go over here and maybe I'll make this a little green. Let's see if we can make some green in here. Okay, now what I need to do is I'm just going to draw in some little maze blocks. So maybe up here we'll make a little maze. Then down here I'll make a little maze like this. So this is just a simple way to do this very quickly for Pac-Man to go around. And like I said, you could make your own up. You don't have to do this exactly like me. You can come up with your own ideas. So now here's a little maze. And you could add more. And like I said, if you want to get very elaborate, you could try to make it look like this, but it's totally not necessary. Okay, so now we have our background. We have our sprites. Now we're just going to start doing some of our code here. So let's take a look at the ball. We'll do the ball first. And what I want to do is I want to say variables. And I want to say make a variable. And we're going to call it score. Okay, so we're going to call it score. And we're doing the ball number 1 here. And we're going to do events when the flag's clicked, okay? And we're going to say, when your flag's clicked, we want to set the score to 0. Set score to 0. And we're going to say looks, and we're going to show him, okay? Because we have to have him hide if he gets eaten, right? Have you played the game Pac-Man? The guy, when he's eaten, he's hides. He disappears, I should say. And we're going to say forever, if then, what are we going to do? If sensing, touching what? If touching sprite 1. Now what I could do if sprite 1 is Pac-Man, if that confuses you, you could just write in Pac-Man here. If that confuses you, I could even call it Pac-Man if that makes it easier for you. But it will say sprite 1 or Pac-Man. So I'll say if touching Pac-Man, what do you want to do if he's touching Pac-Man? Well, what we're going to do with looks, we're going to hide him, and then we're going to change the score by 1. Hide, then variables, change score by 1. Okay. And then the last thing we have to do is we have to put in a location. So where do you want ball number 1 to be? Where do we want? Oh, I'm sorry. Is this ball number 1? Let's see. Okay, this must be ball. So where do you want ball number 1 to be? I want to say I want him to go to. I want him to go down here, -67, -112. Okay, so go to there. So now when we click the flag, we put them down there. So the other balls are going to have the same exact code, except what they do is they have a different location. So I take this whole code and I drag it to number 2, ball number 2, and I'm just going to change it. Where do I want ball number 2 to be? I want it to be down here. I want it to be 135, -112. So I make this 135, and I make this -112, so I got that. And then I take that whole code, and I'm going to drag it down here to the third sprite block. Oh, third sprite block. And where do I want him to be? I want him to be up here. 62, 148. I make that 62, 148. Okay, so I got that. So he's there. So now we have those set up. And the next thing we have to do is we have to just look at the Pac-Man. We have to look at Pac-Man here. Okay, so let's look at Pac-Man. Now I click on Pac-Man. I'm going to code our Pac-Man. I'm going to say events. When the flag's clicked, where do I want him to go to? I want the Pac-Man to go to, maybe I want him to start over here. Okay, I want him to start over here. -140, 101. So I put -140, 140, and 101. So it's up to you. You could put them where you like. It's no big deal. Then I'm going to say control, and I'm going to say forever, and I'm going to go if then. And now we have to make it that he can't go through these green blocks. So I'm going to say sensing if touching color, and I'm going to, if touching color, click it, click the exact color. Touching the color, what is he going to do? He's going to move -10 steps. -10 steps. We did this in some of the racing games that we did. So if he's touching that, he's going to go -10 steps. Now here's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to right control duplicate, and we have the same setup, and we're going to delete this part that says go to, and we're going to say forever if then. Okay, and now we have this block ready to go, forever if then. And we want to say operations, and we're going to say greater than. Okay, and we'll say greater than what? We'll say greater than 2 or 3. It's up to you. It depends on how many of these little things you have. So I'll say greater than 2 because I have 3 of them. If you want to do more blocks, then you can make this a higher number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if the score is greater than 2, what do I want to do? I'm going to say you win. Looks, say you win. You win. Okay, so up one time. Okay, so that means if he has more of these points, if he's eating more than 2 of them, it's going to say you win. And some students, what they do is they'll do switch the background. They'll say next backdrop, and then what you could do is you could create another backdrop if you wanted to that says you win. So you go over here and you create a backdrop that would say, you draw one in and it would say, let's say like you win, right? So you could type in, say, you win. Oh. So this is another way you could do it if you wanted to. If you want to code it, if you wanted to make it switch, you could switch the background and to say, backdrop 3, say instead of you win, it would actually switch to the backdrop that says you win. But we're not going to use that one today. We're going to use, let me go back to the backdrops here. Backdrops. So that's another way you could do it, switch the background, but we're not going to do it. We're just going to keep it consistent like this. But anyway, So you say you win, and now we have that. And now we have to have, what do we want to happen if he touches the ghost? What's going to happen if he's touching the ghost? Well, we'll duplicate. We're going to use the same thing again. And we're going to say if touching, touching ghost. If touching ghost, okay, if touching the ghost, what are we going to say? Say you lose. You lose. Okay, he says you lose for 2 seconds. And then we're going to go control. We're going to wait 1 second. And then we're going to control stop all. And you don't put it down in here because that's not going to be improper code. We want it only to stop all after it does all of this stuff. Okay, so now we have that set up. Next thing we have to do is just move Pac-Man. So we're going to say events when clicked, when the left arrows. What do we want to do when the left arrow is pressed? We want to change x by -10. So we're going to go to change x by -10. And we want to point in direction -90. So point in direction. Oh, point to the direction to the left. And we can duplicate that. And then we just do the same thing but for the right. We'll say when the right arrow is pressed, change by 10 and by 90. Okay, so now we have the left and the right arrow moving. Now we have to do up and down. So what I could do is I can duplicate this, and I could say the up arrow. And I'm going to move this in the up direction, and the up arrow we have to change Y. So not X. We got to leave this on the side here. We got to change Y. Change Y by 10 for the up arrow, and then we'll duplicate this. Okay, and we say when the down arrow is pressed, we're going to change Y by -10, and we'll point in direction down. Okay, so now we have the basics of a game setup. So now when we have our Pac-Man going here, he can go down, and if he eats the if he eats the little block there, you could change this. If this is not going smooth, you could change some of these numbers to 5 if you want. Notice if he eats the block, it changes the score. So now he's got 2. The last thing we want to do is we want to code the ghost here. Okay, so let's take a look at the ghost. And there's a few different things you can do with the ghost if you'd like. First thing you want to do is you want to go to events and say when the flag's clicked. And then you want to say go to. Where do you want to start the ghost? I guess you could start the ghost, you know, down here if you want, or down here. Maybe we'll start them up here. 213, 144. It's up to you. You start them where you want to be. It's your design. 144. And then what you could do is, there's a few different things you could do. If you want to, you can use the glide. And you can have them glide to different positions, like glide to different places. Or you could have them glide to random positions. Or if you want, what you could do is you could make it that it's set that he automatically goes towards the Pac-Man. So here's a way to do it that if you want to, you could either put something like this in here, you know, like glide to a position, then glide to random. You know, so we'll try a few different things to see how it goes. So first we'll have glide. Let's try glide 3 seconds to random. So now you see he's going randomly to every 3 seconds. Oh, I'm getting caught in the thing here. Okay, he got me there. And if you don't want to do that, you can do like this. You can do glide to Pac-Man. You can glide to Pac-Man. You can say every 5 seconds. So now he's going to go exactly to Pac-Man. So let's take a look at that. So now he's going to go down to Pac-Man. He's going to be following Pac-Man. The other thing I want to mention, if the Pac-Man, if you want to, you could take this point in direction off. If it goes at a little, you could see if it goes a little better without the point in direction. We'll see. Sometimes it might go a little smoother. Yeah, it goes a little smoother without the point in direction. So he does. So if you don't want to put that point in direction in there, it could be a little smoother like this. He doesn't face the right way, but the control is a little bit smoother. Now we have like this, and notice the ghost is coming after us. So that's the basics of a Pac-Man game. He says you win.